All right, here we are. So we took a long break, but it's a very good place to start again because we're at chapter 12. Up until now, I've always said we're doing spiritual anatomy. Now we're up to the instructional part of the Tanya where it's a how-to, where it's going to teach us how to go along this path. Now that we know that we have the building blocks, we know that we have two souls, we know that we have emotions, both with the animal soul and both with the godly soul. Then we have garments that we can choose to take on and off. We can choose to clothe our godly soul and have that expressed through our clothing, and we can choose to clothe our more natural animal soul through our clothing. And our clothing, what expresses our insides, our actions, our speech, and even our thoughts. And we're going to come back to that idea of thoughts later in this chapter. We also talked about 3 different types of people, each with a different relationship between where are they at with their godly soul and their animal soul. In chapter 9, we learned about the city, that our body is like a city, with our animal soul wanting to rule our city, wants our thought, speech, and actions to control them and to lead them, and wants the garments to express it fully and only. And the other ruler, the animal soul, wants the body to fully embody it. And they're both in this tug of war. With the tzaddik, with the righteous man, the righteous person has his godly soul fully in control. The godly soul has won the war. And one level of the tzaddik has the war completely, almost completely won, where the animal soul is like there but in exile, does not have a voice. And the full tzaddik has transformed the energy of the natural soul to be also godly. So the Rasha, which isn't wicked, that's like one translation for it, but in this case we wouldn't call him the wicked person, because the wicked person would be a Rasha Gamor, the worst level, the one where the godly soul is so banished by the animal soul's winning. The animal soul has won over the small city of the body so completely that the godly soul has left the city almost and is hovering around the city to see maybe it will eventually one day re-enter, but doesn't have a voice. It's just kind of not there. And the animal soul is fully expressing. That's wicked. That person probably doesn't have any regrets after sociopath. That's what we're talking about. But the Rasha She'eno Gomor, the incomplete Rasha, there's a huge range. Somebody can be just had lingered on an unholy thought for another second longer than, didn't just let it pass by, but just lingered on it a little longer, and that's already the Rasha category. Somebody can be so elevated and spiritual and still not be perfect. Anybody in the imperfect category is Rasha. So we're not going to translate him as wicked, because I would probably be in that category, and I don't think I'm wicked, but I'm Rasha. I am in the Rasha category. And I guess we can, in chapter 11, we would analyze why he's being called wicked, I guess named after the fact that his animal soul, which is on the other side, we also talked about klipa and holiness. Klipa is the shell that covers the holiness. That shell that covers the holiness isn't holiness, therefore it's the other side, therefore it's Rasha. But that's leading us up to this point, where we talk about the Beinani. Beinani comes from the word Bain, in between. So, if we have Rasha on one side and Tzaddik, righteous person, on the other side, the Beinani is in the middle. Does that mean that he is average? That he's, sometimes, following his animal soul, sometimes following his godly soul? Would that be a proper, what do you think? No, that wouldn't be, because that would be the Rasha category. The Beinani is in between. Bain not because he's average, not because he's a median, but because he is in between the Rasha and the Tzaddik. He has part of him, he's kind of like schizophrenic. Part of him is Rasha, part of him is Tzaddik. So which one, if we were to divide ourselves into insides and outsides, our insides being our emotions and intellect, and our outsides being the garments, our thoughts, speech, and action. Insides, outsides. Which the Beinoni has one of these elements aligned with the Tzaddik, and one of these elements aligned with the Rasha. So, insides, outsides. The inside of the Beinoni is aligned with actually the Rasha, because he hasn't conquered the city. He still has a alive and healthy animal soul, fully, vocal inside of him. He has two fully vocal voices. This is the man who struggles. But his outsides, his expression, his clothing, the thought, speech, and action are fully aligned with the Tzaddik. They're perfect. In fact, if you were to meet a Beinoni, you'd probably think he was a Tzaddik, because for all intents and purposes, he looks like one. He behaves like a Tzaddik. There's virtually no way to tell from the outside if somebody is a Tzaddik or a Beinoni, because they look identical. They're both perfect in their actions. This is a very exciting chapter, because the book of the Tanya is called Sefer Shel Beinonim, the book of the Beinoni. So we're finally getting to learn about the character of the book, the protagonist, the main character. That's the Beinoni. That's our path as a regular minority of the world follows the path of the Tzaddik. It's like two different tracks. It isn't that you can become a Beinoni. So let's say we're Rasha. We start out as a Rasha, then you become a Beinoni, and then you keep going, and then you one day might become a Tzaddik. It's two different paths. There's the Beinoni path and the Tzaddik path. The Tzaddik path is not the path of this book. We know we were described what it is in chapter 10 and 11, because it's very important for us to know that. We're going to come back to it as to why. And we also talked about how being like, it's good to know this exists. But the Beinoni is a completely separate path. It's not ever going to get to the place where his city is conquered by the godly soul. He will always struggle. To be human is to be imperfect. To be human is to struggle. That human, that's the Beinoni. That's the majority of the human population will be Beinoni. To be human is to struggle. So if we were to try and make our insides perfect and judge ourselves for every impulse that we have inside of us and every thought that comes up and every feeling that arises and say, no, that's bad. You got to be perfect inside. It would be extremely frustrating, because it's not in our capability. What is in our capability with the Tanya is really a life's work, but capable yet still a life's work, which is to ensure and to make it that all of our actions are perfect. So we're not trying to change inside of ourselves. We're not trying to say, no, you're not allowed to feel that. But what are you going to do with that? That's what's in the Beinoni's control. So, where do I want to go with that? That's where I want to go with that. Let's read the first reading. So the first page is where it's this one. I'm going to hold it up. So the highlighted piece is what we're going to read. Below, maybe Rika, do you want to read the Hebrew? You got it right. You're in the right place.
ולא נקרא עליו שם רשע, אפילו שעה אחת ברגע אחד כל יומיים.
That's right. And in English, maybe Katya.
The name Rasha has never been applied to him, however temporarily, not even for a moment, throughout his life.
Whoa. So this is a description of the Beinani. It's saying that the Beinani, the sentence, what it says, and we're going to explain it, says the Beinani never sinned. It never even occurred.
He's kind of a saint.
He's perfect. His actions are perfect.
So how does it apply to us? Because if you said, if you're a Rasha, I'm a Rasha, everybody's a Rasha.
And you're stuck there, basically.
We're stuck
According
there.
to the sentence, it looks like that.
Yeah, it's not our path.
It looks like that because a Beinani never sinned in his life.
Yes.
Right? Well, if I've sinned in my life, does that eternally disqualify me? So that's why we're reading this, and that's why we're going to understand it. And it's, once we understand it, it gives a new understanding of what it is to be a Beinani. So,
isn't it your conscience?
Your conscience would maybe be the godly soul.
And
the
develop
Beinani,
empathy?
yes. And the Beinani is somebody who fully acts in line with their godly soul's voice. Always. Always, always. And that's what we're reading here. Always. No exceptions. That would look like it's disqualifying so many of us that are already out of the race because we've already, been out of line with our conscience, out of line with our godly soul. So where does that leave us? So, what it's describing here is an experience. The Beinani, let's just take a slice out of the Beinani's life, a slice in time. Let's say right now, there is a Beinani, and that Beinani comes, a thought enters his mind, an impulse enters his mind to lash out at somebody because he feels anger comes up, he feels this impulse to lash out, but has managed to be in a fully in control mode that it doesn't even occur to him the possibility of actually lashing out. It wouldn't happen. It's not a possibility for them in this time. Has it ever happened to you that you could look at a part of your past and just don't feel connected with that part of yourself? You're like I don't feel aligned with that Rickle or that whoever that was. It was in my past historically, but it's not aligned with who I am today. That's what we're talking about with the Beinani. We're talking about today. Today, is it in their possibility to lash out, or are they right now fully in control that it's not even they don't have a relation, they don't have, it's not a possibility for them right now. They can't relate to even ever acting on that. Maybe they did 20 years ago, but they don't relate to that person. So that's what we're talking about. They're at a place where they can't imagine acting out on it. That's what we mean by never. And this is really clarifying for us to understand what it's like to be a Beinani. We all have lines. We all have lines that we won't cross, right? That line for the Beinani is pushed up. So it's like if you're shopping in Champs-Élysées, just bring up Paris, and you're looking in the window and you see this beautiful pair of shoes, and right away your impulse, you have this desire that comes, I want those shoes. Normal, right? As a Beinani, we're never expected to not want the shoes. Maybe a tzaddik has no relationship with physicality in that way and they don't even want them. A Beinani is going to want the shoes, okay? Looks at the price tag, $30,000.
Expensive shoes, even for Paris.
Let's say this person isn't a millionaire, a regular middle class person. Yeah? And they're going to be like, walk away. It's not a possibility, right? It's not like it isn't like, I actually had this experience. I was in Miami, wish Paris. I was in Miami and I was trying on sunglasses. I'm still looking for sunglasses that I love. I love glasses. And I found this pair. Oh my God, they're gorgeous. Everybody see pictures of these gorgeous glasses. They were Cartier. And I put them on and they're gorgeous on my shape of my face. Like, honestly awesome. And if they were like $300, $400, I would have bought them, right? But they were $1,200. And
This is why you like that so much.
Duh. So it was like over, game over. Like I just can't entertain that.
Yeah.
Right? So if they were 500-600, I'd be like, can I
Okay,
justify it? And maybe it would be like this huge dilemma. Can I justify
Like eat
600?
again forever.
Right? Like, are they really worth it? They're on my face. They're like jewelry. Like I can make all these justifications, but 1,200 is out of the range. It's just no, right? No, that's the Bainani. That's like, no, I'm not going to lash out. It's just not going to happen. And it's kind of like what we experience if we're in public sometimes. Like you're really, really mad, but you're just not going to lash out. Yeah? Right?
Yes.
That's what the Bainani experience is, but even when he's in private. Like, or about everything. Right? That just no, that's the never in his life. That's what that means. It doesn't mean historically in his life. It means right now he has no, what's the word I'm looking for? No relevance, and no imagine. You can't imagine crossing that line. And what this also makes us realize is how much. I just want to make sure we're recording. Good. How much impulse control we actually have. And that brings us. Oh no, actually, it's a little early. No, we'll go there. That brings us to the next reading. On the other side, and it's at the top, where it says, this is and this is actually, I got to give this the proper respect. This is the mantra, the theme of the Tanya. It's right here. We're going to keep coming back to this principle. This is a principle. And this is, Ki hamoach shalit al halev. The mind rules the heart. We talked about this in chapter 3. And we're going to do that again here. But the sentence continues, and it says, Betoladeto viteva yitzirato. By virtue of its innately created nature. In other words, in our physical, natural, psychological, physiological, human makeup of the body and mind, it is in our nature for the mind to control the heart. What does that mean? Well, we can take this on a scientific level. Everything that we feel and do is generated by the brain, right? That's just the way it works, right? Can't have a human without a brain. Brain is what generates all the things, whether it's the involuntary, muscles or the voluntary muscles, right? It's just the way it is. Also, psychologically, we may want to think, or we may be told by society that we don't have any control. Like, I lost control, or what do you expect? I was triggered. It's a very Gen Z, thing to say. Like, like what's going on with the protests? Like, oh my God, it can't be expected to. Or even just like, you made me angry, right? Passing the buck onto being passive. What this is telling us is that actually that's not true. We do have the ability to control. Whether or not we always do is another story. We can actually analyze what happens when we choose to let our emotions express themselves.
You mean behave in a very bad fashion?
Yes.
Like the protest.
Like the protest, exactly. So when we choose to lash out at somebody, whether it's our child or spouse or friend or whoever, business coworker, when we choose to do that, It's a choice. We are choosing to allow our emotions or our negative emotions to give voice, to give them a garment. We actually have the choice. We actually have the ability not to do that. And it doesn't always feel like it, but if you just zoom out a moment and like that split second, and you really hone in on what's happening in that split second, you can actually track that choice happening. And what we can do is by the process of elimination, when there's somebody around, somehow that we don't want to do that in front of, somehow we manage to control it, right? Somehow it happens, right? So that kind of shows us that we do have that choice. Sometimes we might ask ourselves, why did we choose that? Sometimes there's a reason. Sometimes there's wisdom there. When it comes to psychology, you can get a therapist and really go into, why did I choose to let myself lash out? What was going on? Did I choose was it too uncomfortable for me to sit with that feeling? Was it because I wanted to be heard that way? Maybe there was a reason, but it was still a choice. It was a choice. It wasn't that you were just passively, at the mercy of the action coming out of you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that is what the Tanya is saying. It's reminding us of the principle of our psyche, that we were created with a natural and innate ability to control, to have impulse control, to control ourselves. And what the Beinoni does is uses that, expands that ability, and that's actually something that is a great tool. And people do like cold plunges also to expand their ability to withstand stress and be more in a clear brain in times of stress, right? That's what the Beinoni has, this super power, this amazing honed skill, has expanded it and worked on it to manage his impulses to the degree that he can't even imagine ever not having impulse control. Does he not have impulses? He has impulses because he's a regular person, just like he's like the Rasha inside. He still has impulses. He's not a tzaddik. He doesn't have to judge himself for feeling a feeling that is unpleasant. He doesn't have to judge himself for feeling a desire for the $30,000 pair of shoes. Why do you even want that? No. Of course you want that. It's normal, right? So the impulses and the desires and the temptations are normal and okay. But the Beinoni is never going to act on them, or at least as in the Beinoni state. He can't imagine acting on them. He can't imagine. It's just, no. Like, that impulse isn't, he expands the ability and works on the ability to feel a desire and not have it, or feel an urge and not act on it. The Beinoni has another superpower, and that is, he visits, what do I like to call him? He visits the Beinoni spa. The Beinoni spa is where he does cold plunges, but spiritual ones. And he basically is prayer and Torah study. Okay? That's where the Beinoni goes to feel like a tzaddik. And that's literally what happens. Not only does he feel like a tzaddik, he actually can access temporary tzaddik states. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to have had chapter 9, 10, and 11, where we learn about what the tzaddik is like and what's going on. Because the Beinoni actually goes there. He goes to experience tzaddik. And what that does is it gives him the strength and the oomph to then have that impulse control in regular life when he's not in a tzaddik state. So what is going on? When he prays and meditates, he's fully allowing himself to experience the prayer fully, not just like say the words or maybe have the words and the meaning of the words kind of occupy, like maybe a thought, maybe an awareness. No, he fully goes there. He fully goes into this experience where it is the left. Remember we talked about the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart? How the left side of the heart is the abode of the animal soul, and the right side of the heart is the abode and the place where the godly soul is fully manifest. And it's figurative. It's not like if you were to do an operation and the right side of the heart, you'd be like working with the godly soul. No, we're talking about figuratively, left side, right side. And the right side of our heart is, if we're not a complete wicked Rasha that's banished that to be, surrounding him, but in a regular person, that's where the godly soul lives. That's where and we have something in there called Ahava Mesuteret. It's hidden because we're not always attuned to it, but it's always there. It's this natural, very parent-child-like natural love to God. Very calm experience. It's just there. It doesn't have to do anything. It's always there. That's that we're going to talk about that in later chapters of Tanya. Today, we're just going to say that that's the Beinoni's experience on a day-to-day life. As he goes about life, he's got this hidden love of God like a regular person. He's got the impulse control. He has to have impulse control because he has the left side of his heart, which is lived in by the animal soul. That's like kind of another way to describe the struggle. Right side of the heart, left side of the heart. What happens when the Beinoni prays? The same thing that happens when with the tzaddik, but the tzaddik can stay there, and the Beinoni can only get there while he's praying. And that is that natural love of the right side of his heart. He meditates, he concentrates on God and aspects of God with the words of the prayer and also Torah study. And he stokes these sparks of this natural love into fiery flames. And that's why this love is called Ahava Kirish Ve'esh, flames, love of flames of fire. And it takes over, like flames do, the left side of the heart to fully unite the heart in service of God and love of God completely. And at this time of his prayer and his meditation, he is there. He's a tzaddik. He's a temporary tzaddik. And that's why I like to call it the Beinoni spa. Because he gets to get this like experience of what it's like to be a tzaddik. And we have a prayer in our prayers that embodies this experience. That's like the climax of the Beinoni spa experience, and that's the Shema. Shema is literally this: we shall love our God with all. The words of Shema are Ve'ahavta le're'acha. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You shall love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. That is the words that are like the lyrics of this experience. So the Beinoni goes to the Beinoni spa, but then the Beinoni, he leaves. He has to leave. He's a regular person, and there's a lot of, we're going to learn about in the Tanya, the value of working with the world, and not just praying all day, although some people did do that. But the majority of people have work to do, and they can't stay in the spa all day, as nice as that is. So, but they have a muscle, like a memory. What the spa does is the prayer leaves behind a residue, like a memory of what it was like to be there, and even a muscle memory, so it's easier to go back there. And that helps the Beinoni utilize the mind rules the heart so extremely, so completely. So with those two tools together, with that full, really taking meditation and prayer seriously, and then using and expanding the natural ability to have impulse control, that's how the Beinoni gets where he gets. Now, like I said before, with the never in his lifetime, the Beinoni is actually a Beinoni experience. We can access Beinoni experiences moments at a time. If we are in a place where we have experienced a temptation or a trigger, and we have not acted on it, then we have experienced a Beinoni experience. A Beinoni as a person is somebody who's done this, what is the word? Not withstand, but holds, like can stay there, right? Can keep that state up for longer periods of time. That's somebody who we would call a Beinoni as a title. But that's not to say that any person cannot access. They can. Each one of us can access moments of Beinoni. As we go on our journey, we work on making those moments longer and more complete, and longer and longer and longer throughout our lifetime. Make sure that I haven't left anything out, because we are coming. Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Two more things. So, I wanted to talk about thought for a minute because thought is one of the garments. We have thought, speech, and action. So action is clearly an expression of, of our insides. Speech is also clearly an expression of our insides. But thought, even though it's private, is also it's active. So there's thoughts that come up, but then there's thoughts that we think about. That's two different things, especially when we want to talk about a Beinoni. Like we said, a Beinoni has impulses. A Beinoni has thoughts come to their head. That's normal and never going to be able to be avoided, because a Beinoni's destiny is to be a Beinoni. It's to be a human that struggles. That Beinoni is still a Beinoni as long as he lets those thoughts pass by. Thought came to his head, decided to dwell on something different. Uses his choice, uses freedom of choice and impulse control to even manage their mind and decide consciously what they want their mind to think about. They want to occupy their mind with. Allowing, and there's that choice, allowing yourself to ponder a thought that doesn't align with a godly soul, that's already animal soul garments. So just wanted to take this time to explain how thoughts are a garment, even though we do have thoughts that we cannot control that just pop into our heads. Where the control happens, where the choice happens, is if we're going to allow ourselves to ponder that thought, dwell on that thought, or are we going to let it pass by and dwell on something we rather dwell on? And to conclude, with King Solomon's wisdom. King Solomon said something about this ability, this natural ability for the mind to control the heart. And that's in the highlighting at the bottom where it says, Ki tichtiv, vera'iti, and this is King Solomon talking, Sheyesh yitron l'chachma min hasichlut, ki yitron ha'or min ha'choshech. Thus it is written, that I have seen wisdom surpass folly like light surpasses darkness. This is a huge Hanukkah theme. Light over darkness. Now, nobody needs to tell us, we don't need King Solomon, the wisest of all men, to tell us that light is better than darkness. Right? We know light is nicer. It's more enjoyable. It represents goodness. We know good is better than bad. But so why does King Solomon need to tell us that? It's obvious. Well, what he's saying is that it's light over darkness. Light has an advantage over darkness in that it is natural for light to prevail. Think about a dark room. What happens to when you light a candle? The darkness naturally isn't there anymore because it's the absence of light. So light has an advantage that it's a tendency to lead. And just that way, wisdom has a tendency to rise. Wisdom prevails. Maybe it doesn't happen right away, and that's what we see in the world going on right now. But we can trust King Solomon, and when he tells us that wisdom will prevail, wisdom does prevail. It's natural for wisdom to prevail. And so when we stick with wisdom, even if it isn't popular, eventually, hopefully, we will get to see in our lifetime wisdom prevail. I'd love to meditate on the comfort that I find in the natural ability for our mind to lead our heart. So let's all close our eyes. Let's start breathing. Breathe in. Breathe out. Allow the breath to enter through your heart space. Allow each breath to expand the heart space. You might feel this in the front of the heart. You might feel this expansion through the back as well by the rib cage. Allow your breath to fully expand your heart space, the front and the back. Now, as you take breaths in, expanding your heart space, and out, allowing your breath to fully exhale, notice your feelings. Notice feelings that come up for you there. Allow them to be just what they are. Feel your feelings in your heart space. Ask your feelings how old they are. How old is this feeling? How old does it feel? A lot of times our feelings are young. They feel young. They might feel like a child, craving recognition, attention, love, acceptance, connection. Some of our feelings might be unpleasant. Now let's talk to our feelings. And let's tell them, don't worry, I got you. You don't have to, you can feel. It's okay to feel. You're allowed to feel. But you don't have to make the decision. You don't have to lead. That's okay. Now, open up your heart to notice your mind. Kind of have it look up towards your mind space. And maybe allow it to be receptive to your mind's direction, much like a parent directing a child. Allow your heart to listen to your mind. What is your mind telling your heart? What is the message? What is its message for your heart? Only you know what your mind is telling your heart. Now allow your heart to feel the comfort that comes with being led, comforted. Maybe the mind is comforting the heart. Maybe the mind is reminding the heart of maybe a truth that it might consider. And maybe the mind is telling the heart, you know what? It's okay to feel that, but you don't need to say that. You don't need to be the one to make the decisions of what I say and what to do. It's okay to let your feeling be. It doesn't have to go away. I'll take charge here. Kind of like the mind saying to the heart, I'll take charge here. I got you. You can take the rest that you need. Well, I'll make the decision necessary that's better for you and better for me, all of us. Because we are one. We're a mind and a heart. That's our natural mind leading our heart. Notice how that feels for you inside. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I'm really curious how that felt for you.
I'll start. So, for me, anytime I feel something negative, I try to push it away. Like, I feel that I allow myself to feel only the positive. So, love, friendship, generosity, whatever, you know. But today I feel anxious. And so it was very good for me to have that discussion between my mind and my heart to tell it, it's okay, you can be anxious for a while, but it doesn't mean you're going to be anxious forever. And it doesn't mean that this is the state to put forward. I can,
Beautiful.
put it aside for a while, let it feel this way. And I felt really happy at the end. Like I had a smile, I was like, it's very comforting to know that you can have this conversation inside.
Yes.
And really rule over it and say, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're safe. You can feel that.
Yes.
It's okay.
And it's okay. You don't have to judge yourself out of it,
No.
right? Yeah.
Well, you don't have to judge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We're human, and we have different experiences and different interactions with people, so we have different feelings about
Yeah. I think it's really interesting about the anxiety because that is like very much in psychology, mind and heart. Like even we use the mind to help the heart through anxiety. I had anxiety recently, and I challenged myself to let the thought of what was making me anxious roll away and just kind of deal with what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And when I allowed the anxiety to just be what it is, and then my mind was able to, like you said, make the decision that it's not going to be what I lead with. It's not, I can decide, the power, I love that comfortingness.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I felt comfort when I thought of this. I felt comfort because I felt like, oh God, how scary would it be if our emotions needed to make decisions and lead? Kind of like the way children feel comforted when they get disciplined. They want what they want, but they also want to be told, okay, bedtime, right? So it's comforting for me, right? To okay, I'm allowed to feel anxious, but I also don't need to make choices based on that. Yeah.
You can compartmentalize.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we do when we allow our natural ability for our mind to lead. We compartmentalize, we give the choice making to the mind.
It's really the power that you gave yourself.
Yes.
By reminding
Yes.
that this is where the control comes from.
Yes.
And it's true that most of the time we feel we lead, by our emotions.
And I think there's a lot when we say lead with your heart. I wonder what that is, because of course that's a positive thing to lead with love.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's like when we say allow our mind to lead, we allow our mind to choose which emotions to lead with.
Absolutely.
And then when we leading with our heart is the emotions that we choose, our mind is choosing.
It's conscious.
So it's still the mind leading, but also feeling empathetic and using, because our heart's there to feel positive feelings too. And our mind helps us choose which feelings to lead with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.